Welcome to Podadelphia. My name is Sarah Siders. You can find me on Twitter at Sarah Siders. And things are a little bit different tonight, as you can tell, because I'm the one speaking to you and not Dave. He's under the weather. No COVID as far as we know so far. And all the things are happening in Phillies sports. And I'm joined by one guy who is prepared to be miserable by the end of this podcast. Gene, how are you?
Hey, Sarah. Hey, all of you out there who are watching our feed. Yeah, I mean, be miserable before the end of the podcast. I hate to break it to you. I've sort of started this under a grumpy cloud.
Yeah, offline, I believe that you said that you could be angry enough about the Eagles game for all of us. So,
I stand by
that. And we are going to start with the Eagles tonight. For those who are listening to this on the recording and not streaming with us live, currently the Phillies are at the top of the eighth against the Braves, down 2-0, and their playoff hopes are more or less riding on this game and several following it. So we'll get to that once this game's over. But we're going to start with the Eagles and a game that we wish, that we're grateful is over. One that Jalen Hurts wants to flush down the toilet, very eloquent, and one that Gene has strong feelings on. So Gene, where do you want to start with that Eagles debacle? Is that fair to call it a debacle?
Well, you don't want to have your quarterback who's number one talking about taking a number two. That's not generally how you want a press conference to go. But I mean, that was pretty apt description of sort of the entire play of our hometown 11. It was not good. It was not good last night, and it was sort of not good from the jump. Dallas goes and scores on their first possession. The Eagles turn the ball over on their first possession, but they're able to sort of counter and get a fumble or a phantom interception or whatever that turnover was, sort of in the end zone by Fletcher Cox, and that was sort of the high water mark for the Eagles, was tied at 7 in the first quarter, and it felt like from that point forward, they just weren't really ever in the game again.
Did you have hope when it was tied at 7? Because I did. Even despite the level of play leading up to it, and you and Dave were far more pessimistic going into the game than I was.
Sure.
But when it was tied up at 7, I thought, okay, we can dumb luck our way into this game and at least make it fun, at least make it competitive. And spoiler alert, neither of those things happened. It was not fun and it was not competitive. Mm-hmm. But tied up at 7, I still had hope. Did you have hope, or did you already see the writing on the wall?
Yeah, no, I think that I certainly had hope. And, as the game sort of got closer, I never thought that the game was going to be non-competitive. I thought that Dallas was probably the better team. I think that they certainly proved to be the better team in reality. But I think going in, I just didn't have this overconfidence that the Eagles are going to go in there and blow the doors off of Dallas. That offense just has too many weapons, and the Eagles are still trying to figure out some things on the outside to contain those receivers. I mean, flat out, the Eagles have no ability to stop the run. They couldn't stop it in the first half of the Atlanta game. They didn't stop it against San Francisco. And Dallas could run the ball at will against the Eagles with Troy Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott. They've got to figure that out.
Yeah, not only do they have to figure it out, they have to start somewhere. It's so deficient that even if they perform twice as well, we'd still be getting blown out due to a running game. And we just have to shout out Zeke for the ailing Dave DiOrio, because probably his most hated guy in the NFL for on-field
top 5.
Yeah. And we heard his name a lot on Monday night.
Way more than you wanted to hear. The other thing, the sort of the counter to the Dallas success running the game, the Eagles called 3 plays for their running backs.
How?
I've never even heard of that sort of a statistic in an NFL game where you give the ball, 3 handoffs to running backs. If I'm Miles Sanders this morning, I think I'm at Nick's door and been like, what the hell, man? Like, am I chopped liver? It'd be one thing if the Eagles were injured at running back. That's this kind of thing where, like, if you were in a position like maybe Baltimore's in, where you're on your fourth or fifth running back, guys that weren't even in camp with you, maybe you would see a statistic where you don't run the ball more than, even 10 times seems way too low for me, but 3 is just like inexcusable. I know you were sort of chasing the game basically since kickoff, but the Eagles do have talent at the running back position. It seems just ridiculous to not try to set yourself up with some shorter yardage situations where you're not always 2nd and 8, 2nd and 11, 3rd and 14. That would have been one way to help yourself. They kept doing those sort of run pass options. Jalen Hurts was extending them. And it's one of those things where, and I'm sure we're going to talk about this probably more in depth, but the way what was happening was you kept having these same penalties called over and over again. And I think if you weren't paying attention to what was being called, you might have missed what was really the problem. It was that they were these run pass options were being called, and the offensive linemen sort of have to make their block, and then they sort of have to get downfield. And Hurts was extending these plays, and so that by the time he's actually making the decision to throw the ball, the offensive lineman was already, in an illegal position. And that kept happening. I think there was at least 3 of them. And that's sort of on the quarterback. You have to know the timing of that play in order for it to not result in a penalty. It's the same thing with the other offensive linemen having to sort of get used to the cadence to not have false starts. There was the I don't know if you saw.
Real quick, Gene, I want to put a little of that on Sirianni as well.
Mm-hmm.
There's no preseason anymore. We've established it, and this year was as bad as any year. No preseason. And when it keeps happening, you have to help your quarterback out. It's Hurts' first year as a true starter. He came in relief of Carson last year. But if you see the same problem happening over and over again, it's on you to stop it and to help him out a little.
And that's where, if you start to give the ball to your running back, that can help. Obviously, you've got an offensive line that likes to be aggressive. They like to run block. They like to hit people. They aren't necessarily in their, in their groove when they are backing up. So let them hit people. Let them go downfield. Let them run block.
Haven't we been having this? Thing. Sorry, I was going to say, haven't we been having the same conversation since Andy Reid? Mm-hmm. You thought, okay, Andy Reid's gone. We're not going to have to go. Please run the ball. Please run the ball to at least keep the other side honest. And I forget the Chip Kelly error. I mean, we might have run, but then he'd get rid of
Chip Kelly anomaly.
Yeah. And then we bring in Doug, and it's the same thing over again. It's just like, please run the ball. It's like, I know you need the yardage. I know you're fighting to come back, but you have to run just to get more success throwing the ball, which the Eagles weren't having. It's not like we were picking them apart and go, well, the running game, we're not even trying, but thank God the passing game's working. No, that wasn't working either. So what do you have to lose to run the ball more than 3 times? That's outrageous. And I know he's a rookie head coach, but I mean, I've never coached a football game. I would know to run it more than 3 times. How can he not?
Yeah, they often talk about trying to stay on schedule, and you're not going to do that. You're not going to sustain drives and stay on schedule. You're not going to have ball control if you can't run the ball. That's how you maintain drives. That's how you maintain, that's how you run the clock. That's how you stay in games. That's how you chew up, big chunks of the quarter is by running the ball. And you don't do yourself any favors when you commit as many penalties as the Eagles do. They had a game against Atlanta, I think, where they made 12, they committed 12 penalties. but Atlanta committed like 14. So, and that's week 1. And I think I said after that game, you're not going to beat a lot of teams when you're committing 12 penalties. Well, I think in this game they ended up committing 14 or maybe 15. But either way, that amount of times where you are committing, either you're giving the other team first downs or giving the other offense first downs, or you're stopping your own drives or putting yourself in long yardage situations by committing penalties. That's something that you can absolutely work on. That's something that is within your control. Committing penalties is something that you can control. If you go in and lose a game 41-0 and don't commit a penalty, maybe I can be a little bit more forgiving. You go and lose a game 41. What was the final? 41-14 or whatever. You lose a game 41-14 and commit 14 penalties. It's hard to make excuses for you and say that you're a team that's making its best effort. Maybe it was emotion, but you've got to be able to get those things in check and not commit bonehead penalties that make you fall short.
Yeah, most penalties in franchise history through the first 3 games. And that trend doesn't pop up out of nowhere. After two games, we all saw it that they had an issue committing penalties. You're going into Dallas Monday Night Football, and I want to get back to Monday Night Football in a moment. We'll get to that at the end. We'll get to that at the end because there's something fun there, and we want to be miserable for a little bit. But a prime time, all eyes on you game, and you have a glaring problem and either seemingly don't address it, or however you chose to address it was so feckless that you went on to take another 14 penalties. Mm-hmm. It's walking away from this game. I'm left. I don't know if I have more questions, but I don't have any more optimism. And my expectations were still low for this season. They've gotten locked in low now, but you wanted to see something. You wanted to see something that you can build on, something you can go, okay, Jalen's the real deal. Maybe we got embarrassed, but we know we have our franchise quarterback. And I'm not prepared to say he's not our franchise quarterback, but he didn't add many things to the pros column this week. He added more doubts and didn't take away any. Sirianni, it's only his 3rd game, but he had a really bad game. He had no doubt about it. He had a atrocious game. The whole team did. And you would like to see some adjustment at halftime. You would like to see just locking it down. Go, okay, we're going to stop the run. We're going to stop the run. We're going to make them beat us passing, which they certainly could have. But try to take something away from them. Try to make an impact, if not even for that game, for the next game. But it just didn't happen. And yeah, you burn the tape. You flush it down the toilet or whatever, but can you tell I'm not a fan of potty humor? Because I've had to wince both times I say flush it down the toilet. And I think it's just the emoji.
It was just such a strange, I get what you were going for, but I don't know that I've ever heard that sort of candor out of a starting quarterback.
Burn the tape doesn't have the dirty connotation with it, so burn the tape and move on. But there's nothing you're going to go back to. Go hey, let's build on this. At least not that I could say. And it's Dallas. At least it wasn't Dallas at our home. It was Dallas away. So that's some small condolence. And
the most points I think Dallas has scored on us in 10 years or something too.
That tracks. As the Eagles have won the Super Bowl, but as much up and down, as many up and down seasons as the Eagles have had the last decade, beating Dallas has been pretty consistent for us, and that's that's always been a high point. Gene, I think you always say the classic line of the Eagles could win 2 games, and as long as they're both against Dallas, I'd be happy.
Yeah, it'd be a successful season.
Yeah, but we're already in the hole for that. Talking about Monday Night Football, I was so looking forward to the game to be able to watch without distractions. It's a late night game. I don't like staying up too late, but to know that I don't have to worry about the kids. I don't have other stuff on my plate that I'm trying to accomplish during the day, that I could just sit down and commit myself to the Eagles. And by the time everything got settled and I went to sit down and commit myself to the Eagles, the game was practically over.
Yeah.
So it really took a lot of the fun out of the Monday night game.
So do you think that Monday Night Football has sort of lost its magic? I mean, I'll tell you that I truly do look much more forward to the Sunday night game, and I feel like Sunday night this season has given us a lot of really good games. Most of the primetime games in general have been good, because that Tampa Bay Dallas game week 1 was a pretty good primetime game. But yeah, Monday night just does not have that cachet it did. When I was a kid, I used to, because it was past my bedtime, but you used to be able to tune in on an FM radio, the audio feed from 6ABC.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember as a kid, I just used to listen to the TV call through the radio, and that's sort of how I really started to be able to pick apart announcers, because if you can't call a game on the radio, then it's not going to make any sense. The classic Frank Gifford and stuff like that. That team was always a good crew for Monday night. But it was a big deal. I remember when we had season tickets to the Vet. One of the things I really wanted was to be able to go to a Monday night game with my dad, because that seemed like the most adult thing you could possibly do, to go to a Monday night football game when you've got school the next day, and the game's not even starting until 8:30. And you usually go to bed at 9:30. So unfortunately, we gave up tickets before I was able to go on the season tickets. But my dad and I went and saw. We did go to a Monday night game at the Link years later, so it's not like it's not like a bucket list thing that I'm trying to chase. But that was sort of a big deal, and I just don't think that it carries the same weight that it used to, where it was the marquee matchup. I think that sort of slid over to Sunday night, or even really honestly, sometimes that 4:00 game on Sunday, especially if you've only got like 1 or 2. Usually, I think that's where you'll find your marquee matchup for the week. But maybe that's just honestly me. I don't know. I don't know how you feel about Monday Night Football in general.
The same. It used to be the game. It used to be the one that you got all your homework done. You settled in. I would watch the first little bit with my parents, and then escape up to my room, take the Walkman, dial all the way back.
Mm-hmm.
It was 88 something or other. It was way at the other end of the dial, and listen to it as well. And it was the game. I hate to say it's a simpler time, because it makes it sound so long ago, but it was what everyone was watching, because the cable television just wasn't as prevalent. But now it's not only overshadowed by the Sunday night game, which I think has replaced it as the marquee game, then the late Sunday game, which was always great. I always love a good late Sunday game after an Eagles win. Typically, that's really the best, when you're riding high against it, and you're like, okay, what's the late national game, and you can relive the Eagles win and go into an exciting game there. Even before the days of Twitter, before Facebook, before people got together and talked about the game digitally. Before that happened, it still felt good knowing that everyone was watching this one game. I do want to say hi to Tracy, who's tuning in from South Florida. I hope you enjoy the show. Keep watching. But it loses a little something with a Sunday night game. having that flexibility to pick a marquee matchup, to flex into it. And then also that Thursday night game too, because we've had a break from football. People like to start their weekend early on Thursday, you know?
Mhm.
So if you stay up for the game and you're a little crusty going into work on Friday, well, it's Friday. You just got to get through one day and you're back on the weekend. So I really think of the marquee games during a week, Monday Night Football might be fourth. It really
Yeah.
might after Thursday night and Sunday night. But there's something that makes it a little appealing, something a little different. Gene, did you enjoy the Manning cast?
I didn't actually watch any of the Manning cast for this game. I have watched it for some of the other games, and I do like it. But I went, and probably I should have, about halfway through, turned over to that to try to keep myself entertained. But no, I hung through with the regular broadcast. It's sort of like one of those things where I felt like for an Eagles Dallas game, I don't need any shtick. I just need the game. So plus I was watching with my pop, so I don't necessarily have. I still don't have seniority. Literally, it's in the name. I'm the junior partner. So I don't have necessarily the same sway as far as what broadcast we watch, especially when it comes to an Eagles game. He still maintains full authority of the remote in that case. So was there anything that came out of the Manning cast this week that jumped out at you? Did you watch any?
I only watched a little bit myself. I watched enough to get a feel for it, but it is frivolous. It's fun. I think it would be a great thing to watch in a game you don't care about, which the Eagles game quickly became. And as much as Eli and Peyton were pains in the ass during their playing career, watching them interact on television, they're really compelling guys. It is a very fun watch. I probably will be checking out the Manning cast more often on Monday night than the regular broadcast because I cannot stand the Monday night broadcast crew. But for the Eagles game, I wasn't in a jovial mood. I was not there to have fun, but I love that it exists. I want more of that.
I was going to say, do you think that this is going to open up some other opportunities to see alternative commentary or alternative broadcasts for other NFL games, maybe even other sports? Could you see this working in hockey? And if it was in hockey, who would be your equivalent of the Manning brothers to watch? Talk about a game in a less formal way. Would you want to see like a Gretzky and Messier broadcast? I'm trying to think of who I would want to sit and watch talk about hockey.
Gretzky is a great call, not to speak, and no pun intended there, but Gretzky is an excellent call because he's a real hockey dork. For lack of a better phrase, Gretzky loves the game. He loves the history of the game. He knows it inside and out, and he wants to talk about it. So he might not be good with the jokes, but he's going to have stories. His most recent book, I don't know if he's written more than one. I'm just assuming he's written more than one, but it was 99 stories of the game by 99, and I'm butchering the title, and I don't care. But his most recent book is a really interesting read because it talks about the history of the game and it gives some of his perspective on it. So Gretzky would be a really good choice. The problem with hockey players is that they don't have much of a personality. Everyone is placing all of our hopes on PK Subban for whenever he retires because he is quick-witted, he is charming, he has a lot of personality. When going to, Keith Jones. Give me Keith Jones because
we
don't get to
Jones.
What's what?
I said, I guess maybe he's just in studio at the moment, right?
Well, I think he's going to be on the TNT broadcast, and he's going to be in between the benches, I think, or rink side, but he's going to be down there. And you get so much personality from Jonesy, not on the broadcast. So this alternative broadcast, Gretzky and Jonesy talking about the game together. They're from even the same hometown. There we go. Oh, Gene, you and I are pitching this to TNT.
Let's do it. Let's write it up. We'll find an elevator and we'll pitch it.
Damn straight. Or, I mean, if Charles Barkley is watching, call us. We'll make this work. We'll make this work. Gene, any last thoughts on the Eagles game or the Monday night broadcast?
I feel like the Eagles are sort of up against a real buzzsaw this week. I don't know what your thoughts are, but the one thing, other than being an Eagles fan this week, I was a real big Kansas City Chiefs fan because I really didn't want to come off 2 losses from Kansas City and have to face them. I didn't want to face a Chiefs team with that talent coming off of 2 losses and their backs against the wall. It's very possible that offense will put up 30 points in the first quarter against the Eagles. I think they're going to be foaming at the mouth. I think they're going to have a real head of steam coming into this game. I don't know that Kansas City is quite the juggernaut they were the last couple of years, but they still are just so stacked with talent.
They're a hell of a lot better than the Eagles.
The fact that they're both coming into this game 1-2 is very, very misleading.
Do we know how Andy Reid is doing? Because he went to the hospital.
Everything I've heard is that he is okay. I don't know that they've released a lot more information other than that he was all right. I mean, it could have been something as simple as dehydration. Apparently, he did speak to the team before he went to the hospital, sort of his post-game chat. So I don't know if it was something that they just wanted to get him fluids in him. I mean, Andy Reid doesn't strike me as the type of guy that's just always good with his water bottle and making sure that he gets his fluids. Call me crazy.
The man gave us pickle juice. He should be better with that.
He really should. So I don't know. I mean, I'm sort of always going to have a little soft spot for Big Red. So I hope the best. I'm gonna same thing for the Eagles next week. I'm gonna hope for the best, but it's very hard to go into this game optimistic. And if you're looking down the barrel of 1-3, I know the schedule starts to get easier, but man, oh man, does that sort of put you in a hole where you need to really rattle off some wins at some point.
Yeah, and there's nothing as fun as that first week was. The following 2 have not given us any hope or confidence that they can really rally back from a 1-3 record.
Well, it really kills you that they sort of had that San Francisco game, not under control, but they were certainly in that game. And for most, and for the first half, they looked real dominant. But when you give up, some of the plays that they gave up and make some of the decisions that they did, it all sort of snowballs. And now, you're looking at a very dangerous Kansas City team that's coming into your building who is playing for a hell of a lot. That's a team that's in a division that looks like there's not really a weak link. Kansas City is all alone in last place in that division. And there's, an undefeated Denver team out there right now. So it's a wild situation the Eagles find themselves in. I still think that they could be a 7-win team. I really hope that holds true. And we'll see. I just want to start to see more positives.
Yeah.
I really want to see them start to turn things around.
Yeah, I want to get back into that mindset that I had before the season started of show me what you got. I'm here. You show me what you got, and then we'll meet in the middle, and I'll adjust my expectations and adjust the way I enjoy the game. So I don't even want to say a good showing. Give me a damn fluky win against the Chiefs, but I don't see it happening. So just something to keep their season interesting for longer, because too many seasons around here in Philadelphia end too soon.
Yeah, they're wrapping before they've really gotten started.
Yeah, and for so many years, that's the case for the Philadelphia Phillies. Now, tonight, their playoff lives are hanging on by a string, and they might be over in just a few moments. But they kept it interesting until practically October, and that's a big improvement over years past. I'm not ready to call this a moral victory at all because we shouldn't be in this position. How many blown saves? Last I heard it was 30, but then I stopped counting.
Yeah, I think it's into the mid-30s now.
Jesus Christ. It convert what 5 of those?
Yeah.
And the
We
the
don't
Phillies are
even need to convert half. If we convert 25%, we're in better shape.
certainly. Certainly, and the Phillies have life. We're not doing live commentary, but it might change the tenor of the conversation. Second, third, 1 out, top of the 9th. So down by 2. There is a chance. There is a chance the Phillies season might not be over. So let's put them on the back burner. We'll see what happens. We'll get back to them. Gene, you want to talk a little Flyers?
Yeah, actually I do, because I think training camp started last Thursday?
It did. It did. Training camp started last Thursday. Tonight was the first preseason game. Last I saw, that preseason game was tied 2-2. I did not see the ending because, well, we're doing this and the Phillies are doing whatever they're doing. But talk about 2 different levels of expectations. The Eagles, it was, I'll take whatever. The Flyers, they addressed all of their problems. They have very few excuses. All they need to do now is go out and win. And they're facing an uphill battle with a lot of the injuries. I believe we talked about last show, just as a quick rundown. Kevin Hayes out 6 to 8 weeks. Sam Moran out 6 to 8 weeks. Wade Allison out indefinitely. So those are 3 big hits.
The Sam Moran injury was sort of, as we were talking about, that was sort of built into the thought process of the year. You know what I mean? This wasn't sort of like unexpected, if that makes any sense. You know what I mean? There was sort of because he went in to have he's the one that went in to have that maintenance surgery, I guess, on his knee, right?
He did. He was expected to be the 7th man coming into the season. The 7th D man, I mean.
Right.
So he's not a big loss per se. You just more or less feel bad for the guy. But the biggest is Hayes being out. That was unexpected. Kevin Hayes spoke to the media at length. Watch it. He did a sit-down interview with Taryn Hatcher where he addressed the loss of his brother. For those that don't know, his older brother, Jimmy Hayes, passed away suddenly and tragically. I think there's been no cause, and I think it was just a fluke thing as far as we all know.
Right.
At 31. And Kevin talks about the outpouring of love from the hockey community and what it's meant to him, but it is a rough watch. That dude is suffering, and then the injury on top of it. He is hanging around the team to be active, to be a part of it, as part of maybe the grieving, the mourning process. But he's got a lot on his shoulders. Trying to step into his place is Morgan Frost. And he is looking good. Frost has had injury history himself. He had lost all of last season to injury when he had gotten the opportunity to join the team. And he has looked so far so good in both rookie camp and in the training camp itself. He did not play in tonight's preseason game. He'll be playing Thursday in Boston. Carter Hart did play tonight. Carter Hart looking good. It's way too early to say, but he was showing a lot of Carter Hart-like tendencies for what I got to see. He tracked the puck well. He wasn't afraid to be aggressive. His positioning was great. So I saw a lot of good things from Carter Hart. Gives us a lot of optimism. Thursday really is a very interesting game for me. I really want to see how Rasto Ristolainen looks with the rest of this team, and to see if he can make that jump. I want to see how Frost looks with the rest of the team, and if he can make that jump. One preseason game doesn't tell you everything, but it's going to tell us a lot. It's going to tell us enough to know where it might be trending. So it's overstating to say it'll say a lot, but it gives us the pieces to start knowing what to look out for and what to be optimistic for.
I was going to say the whole tenor of what we're saying, it does seem like you've got a lot of optimism going into this season, which, that sort of reassures me, because last season left sort of a bitter taste in my mouth. That was not the team that I expected to see. And when they sort of trailed off there, it was disappointing to see them not sort of live up to the expectations that I had going into the season. They had a sort of a good run in the playoffs the year before, and to sort of come out and, not even make the playoffs the following year was, I don't know how else you can categorize it other than disappointment.
Oh, it was a tremendous disappointment. Last season, and from the very beginning, when they were winning in ways that weren't really sustainable, to a absolutely abysmal March. Last season was just a disaster, and that was one where the season was over really before it began. We had 2 months of hanging around, and then by March it was all done. And a lot of that fell on the shoulders of the kids. They, Chuck Fletcher handed them the baton and said, "Run with it." They proceeded to immediately drop it, and we never recovered. We're not going to have that problem this year. Tonight, I know one of the goal scorers, it was at least initially credited to Igor Zamula, and he has filled out some. I want to see more from him to see how he does in a physical game. But he has filled out some, which was a big problem for him last season. He just was getting pushed around by the men in that league. And Cam York is another one to keep an eye on. So they don't need to jump in, but we have them if they're needed or if they're ready. If they're pounding down the door, we can say to somebody like a Keith Yandel, "Hey, sorry, dude, you gotta step aside." Right. We can say something to even a Braun, even though I think that's unlikely. I can't see both York and Zamula making the jump up to the bigs. So the team has a lot of depth. Derek Brassard gives us center depth, which turns out we needed. Nate Thompson, center depth, which turns out we needed. And yeah, so the Flyers have depth. Their season is starting, and the Phils pretty much just ended. The Phils just lost to the Atlanta Braves 2-1, and that puts us 3.5 games behind. I believe the tragic number is 2. If we lose,
I think if we don't win the next 2, it's really over. But
I think if we lose one more game, without help, without a lot of help, and the Braves coughing away their season.
I mean, really, this tonight was a playoff game. You got Zach Wheeler going, and to only score 1 run and not score it until the 9th inning. It's sort of a microcosm of the entire season. You know what I mean? When you get decent pitching and you can't hit when with the bases in the late innings. It's frustrating. This, like we were saying earlier, the Phillies really did try to keep us interested for a lot longer probably than we should have been by any rights. But again, it's looking like another season where we're not going to have playoff baseball in Philadelphia. And it's just getting old. Like, you've got, we're talking, this is going to be year 4 of Bryce Harper. He without a doubt put up MVP numbers. and it's sort of one of those things that Dave always talks about. You can't build from your corner outfielder positions necessarily and have a winning team. Although a guy like Bryce Harper is going to do his damnedest to sort of put you on his back if he can.
And he came damn
I
close
on him. The problem was the same problem you went into this season with, and that's the most frustrating part. You came into this season knowing that you had a problem at the back end of the bullpen. You had a problem being able to close down games. You had a problem being able to get saves. You had a problem with depth in your starting pitching. How many bullpen games in July, August, and September had this team have to go through? You're not going to be able to sustain if your every fifth day starter is 4 guys from the bullpen. That is not going to be a winning formula.
Yeah, and the bullpen only improved from atrocious to adequate this season. And what am I even saying? We had
I was going to say 30 some blown saves is not what I would call adequate. Especially when it looks like you're going to finish within 6 games of the playoffs, within 5 games of the playoffs.
Yeah, and the fact that I consider the bullpen improved despite those numbers, I don't know. There's some talent there, but no, they really did cost us the season. I mean, center field, a doable, whatever, turned out to be okay for stretches, but we never had a great answer there. The bats went cold with no answers, and
I think they made a good move at the deadline, bringing in Gibson. I think he really did sort of shore up a rotation spot, but the problem was, I feel like he surpassed Aaron Nola, which was not what he was brought in here to do.
Yeah.
How many games did we need Nola to really step up and lock a game down? And he just didn't have, he was just too inconsistent. It's the reason why Aaron Nola is not an ace. He's just not consistent. He has every conceivable pitch, to make up an ace's repertoire. He just can't put it all together every fifth day the way that he needs to. Which would make him a really solid 3, maybe, in a staff. But again, the Phillies, how many times have we tried out Vince Velasquez this year, earlier in the year, trying to figure out our fifth starter, or Matt Moore? There were just too many holes in this boat. And still, even with that, you get this far. I hope that the management doesn't see this as a stay the course sign. We were so close. Let's stay the course. We were almost there. No, the Braves were decimated by injury. That's the only reason they fell back to the pack. We wouldn't even be having this conversation if the Braves had stayed healthy. The Mets had to have an even bigger epic collapse than the Phillies in order to put us in this position. And Washington sold off all of their talent. The Marlins are the Marlins. That's how the division sort of shaped up as it was. You were in position this year, had you constructed the roster correctly in the offseason, to capitalize on how this all went down. It really should have ended up being the Phillies and the Braves pushing for 95 wins or 90 wins. The Phillies are going to finish with the win total right around where I expected. They're going to be right around 84 wins, I think. It's probably around where they may finish. But it's not enough. It's not enough, especially when you have 2 teams on the West Coast that are going to have 100 wins. You're just not good enough. You're not there. You're not competing. And it's frustrating.
How many losses to bad teams have we had in key positions where okay, fine, we beat the Dodgers, yay, and then we give all those games back against the Diamondbacks? We have a stretch of the worst team in baseball by far, and then the Pirates, and we cough up 2 games. Now, it would have been unreasonable to say that the Phillies should win all of them, but they should have swept one of those series. The easier one to sweep would have been Baltimore, so you should have done that. but you didn't.
But I mean, that Diamondback series on the road where you dropped 4 games to the Diamondbacks, it's just unexcusable.
Yeah, you win those 4 games, it's a lot. Well, you win 2. You win 2, it's a lot different. It's so many blown opportunities, so many blown saves. Also, does anyone come back from the Lehigh Valley better? Do we
It
go,
doesn't
hey,
feel
go?
like it.
No. No, it's not like go down there, work on your game. Like go down there, wait out your COVID or whatever, and then come back up. It's so incredibly frustrating. It's so incredibly frustrating that they were unable to seize hold of this opportunity that was gifted to them.
Well, and I mean, the thing is, it's most frustrating is these are the things that bit us a year ago.
Yep.
You knew you had a problem with the bullpen, and they changed, they shuffled the deck, the faces changed, but the problem remained. You know what I mean? I don't know where the solution lies, but they just maybe they can't evaluate bullpen arms. I don't know. I mean, it just seems so ridiculous that they cannot figure out a way to sort of solve this problem. They're going to take another crack at it in this offseason. I can't even say that they sort of went on the cheap, but like,
no,
what are, I don't envy the position that the general manager is going to be in this offseason, but if there isn't a significant improvement between this year and next year in the bullpen, I mean, like, this is one of those things where you've got to have it in red, double underlined and highlighted that, like, you need to fix the bullpen. You need to be able to support your starting staff. You need to play better defense. You cannot continue to give games away due to self-inflicted wounds. You can't.
Yeah. And I think 2 things need to happen. The Phillies need to decide what sort of team they want to be. Is it win now or rebuild for the future? We don't have enough assets to do both. Not right now. And
right.
I think with the contract Harper is under, with best catcher in baseball, but for how long? With the contract Realmuto is under, to me it's saying win now. And you have to go look across the street to the Wells Fargo Center, see what Chuck Fletcher did, and go, the Phillies damn well have an offseason like the Flyers did. And not just moves for the sake of making moves, to make the right moves. And we don't know. The Flyers could completely shit the bed again this season. But I want the consensus to be the Phillies need bullpen help. They address their bullpen help. The Phillies need more consistent bats. They need younger bats. They need talent. They desperately need talent. And we can't do it on the cheap. The Phillies have spent money, but they're got to pay that luxury tax next season. I mean, I would love it if they didn't. If they could somehow.
Or if you're not, then you need to make sure that you get the right young talent in. There may be other ways to do it, and that's.
But how do we get the right young talent?
Have to evaluate the right talent. The problem is that they've never really replenished this farm system. They are not developing star players at the rate that other teams are. They just aren't. They are not developing not only good players, but other teams are developing guys that are generational talents, and therefore having them when they are under control in their early parts of their career. You're not going to win by having to go out and shop for already made stars, because you're going to be paying a premium, and they've already got those pieces. This is where you need to figure out ways to make this work by finding the right pieces that you need to add to this team. Maybe a guy like Freddie Galvis is going to be a good piece to keep around. But maybe it's time that you move away from, I like Didi Gregorius, but I don't know that his defense is really going to be able to fly on this team anymore. And his bat is just not enough to keep him around. What are we going to do about third base? We all thought that Alec Boehm was going to be the man, and he just did not seize that opportunity. center field. We've been talking about that for how long now? It's time to really figure out an actual center fielder. And do you want that to be a player that's going to be, have a premium on defense, or is this somebody that you want to put to be your next leadoff man? Andrew McCutchen is not, whatever
Kutch is done. I love Kutch, but Kutch is done.
Yeah, I mean, this is his farewell tour. You're not building the team around Andrew McCutchen. It's very obvious. You can talk to any Phillies fan sitting in left field last week at Citizens Bank Park, and they could have told you what you need to do in this offseason. They could have drawn up the offseason shopping list for you. So it's not that it's not known. Now is the time, and I hope that they've been working on this all year. Now is the time to go and really figure out, okay, we thought we could get by with some duct tape and, shoe shine. But no, it's time that you really – and last year was all about keeping JT, and you did that. He's now under control.
Yeah, there better be a war room being set up over at Citizens Bank Park right now. Yeah, the Phillies could still get lucky, but we have to help ourselves. The Phils more or less have to win out, and the Mets have to do us a favor, and the Braves have one other game in there too. But
But tonight was a playoff game.
It was
a playoff game, and you didn't win.
You didn't win,
and that's the thing is you're going to be in a position where you're probably going to be in a one-game playoff game. Every night this week, we all knew after the day off yesterday, every night this week was going to be basically a playoff game. The most important
not anymore
game. And that's the thing is to have them come out and just not get momentum in that game when you've got Wheeler going, to lose a game 2-1. It's not even like they had the doors blown off them. You just didn't get anything going against Charlie Morton. Nothing but soft contact. It's just not going to go. You know what I mean? You need to generate some offense in a game where you need to have it. You've got to show that you want it more than that other team.
Yeah, how many men stranded on base tonight?
I don't know. It seemed like a lot, though.
Yeah, and I mean, baseball's a game of failure. So, I mean, guys get stranded on base all the time, but the Phillies had a lot more to play for tonight than the Braves. And you can't make it so childlike to say, well, you have to want it more, but you have to want it more than that.
Yeah.
After tonight's effort, that didn't look like a team that had their future in front of them. Even if somehow, and I don't believe it's going to happen, even if somehow the Phillies win the next two against the Braves, that's a lot different feeling than, let's say, we won the first two against the Braves and lost the third. It would take a miracle for the Phillies to make the playoffs now, whereas a few things different, it really wouldn't have. And just the lack of urgency, the bats that were silent for, I think I heard it was 17 innings, and then we had a couple more on top of that. It's just unacceptable. And Joe Girardi, fantastic resume, dude, but you gotta start showing it here. You gotta start showing, I don't know.
A guy whose reputation is that he's a great manager of the bullpen. I think his bullpen is totaling somewhere in the neighborhood of 70 blown saves over 2 years. That's not good.
And we talked about the personnel, but mismanaged too. How many times have we've been chatting over text or Slack or whatever, and everyone can see, why the hell are you pulling him now?
Right.
Or why the hell don't you have somebody up in the pen? And it's really easy to say hindsight's 2020, but we had it with foresight. We're watching the game going, you got to be better. You have to manage your assets better. And he didn't. And as much fun as it was for the Phillies to remain interesting till this point of the season, it just hurts. It just points to how utterly incompetent the Phillies have been since what, 2010?
Yeah.
2011? Yeah.
And Brian Howard blew out his ACL. I mean, that's really
Yeah.
his Achilles. That was the end. That was the end. But hey, spring training, hope springs anew, as they say.
Oh Jesus.
Tomorrow we can
I,
start the countdown to catchers and to pitchers and catchers.
I can't start the pitchers and catchers yet. Speaking of end, do you want to end on something fun? And this
Always.
is not a setup to the penalty box, guys. I saw the look of dread in your face. But we're going to talk about the Sixers. We're not going to talk about more Ben drama because there'll be more next week. He hates everybody here. He doesn't like you. I'm sorry. He doesn't. He doesn't want to play.
It's funny because it just seems like every day you read whatever the new reason why Ben doesn't ever want to be a Sixer again. It was the fans. It was it was the coach. This week, it was or today it was that he doesn't feel like his game can play with Joel Embiid's. I'm sorry. The Sixers made the decision to base their offense around the best player and an MVP candidate. Whoops, sorry. Instead of basing it around a guy who doesn't want to shoot. Whoops, sorry.
The Podadelphia Facebook account, which I'm assuming is Dave, because not Gene or I. The Podadelphia Facebook account says the Phillies got us to the Eagles, and the Eagles got us to Sixers Media Day.
Which really is what we have to hope for every year.
Yeah, just get us to the next entertaining thing. Big news out of the Sixers. Some historic news for Philadelphia. Great Scott. We have Kate Scott, and she's taking over the booth for the Sixers, taking over play-by-play.
Really excited about this, honestly. Really, really excited about this.
Good. I know I am, but I mean, I'm the target audience, I guess. But I'm happy to hear you're excited too. It's about damn time, just our city deserves a little more broader representation, no pun intended, broader representation of the fan base so more people can see people like themselves and hear people like themselves covering the games they love. So I'm really excited to see her call games.
Well, you were going to have to be replacing Zoom, and anybody that was going to come into that chair was going to be sort of filling big shoes. I think I like the idea of being able to hear something that is completely different. Really completely different than what you'll hear on any other NBA broadcast. It sort of is. But I have heard some really great calls done for basketball games by female announcers, a lot of which get done in the WNBA. I don't know how much of the WNBA you've watched. I've watched a little. I'm not. I really suffer from the fact that Philadelphia doesn't have a franchise, and that's a frustrating thing. I am sort of an unabashed homer when it comes to what I watch, and not having that sort of link to a team. It's tough, you know what I mean? Like, who am I going to root for? I'm going to be 4-for-4 in Chicago. I don't know. But yeah, but I do like the game. I've watched a lot more college women's basketball. I really enjoy watching the college women's tournament in March. So, and you can hear some really great female announcers for that too. So, I really like the idea that the Sixers were willing to sort of, you don't want to say stick their necks out and make this decision, because I think that they probably vetted a whole lot of voices before they landed on the decision that they did. But I'm glad that they are being open-minded and, going with what they feel was the best option. And I'm really excited to hear how she does.
Me too. And Gene, you sort of walked back saying stick their necks out. Unfortunately, they did. And fortunately they did. I'm happy that they brought in Kate Scott, but it's not something that's going to be met with universal approval, unfortunately, now. So they are taking a risk by doing this, but I think it's a small risk, and I think we are leaving behind the kind of people who say, I don't want to watch this. You know, there's a shot that Kate Scott might not be a good fit for Philadelphia. And if that happens, that happens. But I heard some of her soccer calls, and I think she does a great job. I think she has a wonderful voice for it, a great cadence. And, it's well past time for this to happen. It's well past time for Philadelphia to get a WNBA team. There's been rumors of expansion. Philadelphia is a phenomenal basketball market. We have supported women's sports in the past, not terribly consistently, but we have.
We have the facility.
Yep. And I would love to see it. I think it would bring in a lot of new fans. I'd be going to games. I can only root for Sue Bird for so long. Because I am low-key in love with Sue Bird. I know that she's engaged to Megan Rapinoe, but I don't really care. But no, bring the WNBA to Philly. And, that's all the time we have for tonight. That's our ending plea to whoever's listening. Well, we have two. One, Keith Jones and Gretzky on TNT doing hockey. Two, revamp the Phillies. 3, get a WNBA team in Philadelphia. 4, please remember to rate, review, and subscribe to our show if you haven't already. If you have more time in your listening week, please check out The Whip Around, our sister show that covers all your weird and wild news. If you like sports, which obviously you do if you're still listening at this point, please check out the other shows on the Painted Lines Network. My name is Sarah Siders. His name is Gene Zelak. Convalescing in the corner is Dave DiOrio, and we'll see you all again next week. Have a great day at work, everybody.